Awesome. Hey, everyone. It's Rob Balasabas here with TubeBuddy. Good to be back. It is Friday here in Vancouver, and this is episode number 7 of the Creators Corner, where we just hang out with different creators, entrepreneurs, and just have candid conversations. And today, we've got two guys that need no introduction. We've got Neil Patel and Eric Su. How's it going, guys?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out, for the next 30 or 40 minutes or so. And really, I've got, I usually have some questions prepared, but I think for this particular interview, I think it's just best to kind of answer the audience questions. And so we posted up a bunch of things yesterday that we were going to be hanging out with you guys today. And so we've got a bunch of questions. So before we do that, though, maybe why don't you guys just, for whatever reason, somebody's out there that's never come across your content, never come across you guys. Why don't you guys just say hello and, introduce who you are, what you're doing. Neil, you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Neil Patel. I blog at neilpatel.com. I have an ad agency called Neil Patel Digital, where we help companies grow faster. And I have a marketing tool called Ubersuggest that helps people rank higher in Google.
Awesome. Sounds good. And Eric
probably has a similar bio.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to say the same thing. So my name's Eric Su. I'll kind of change it up a little bit. I have a software company called ClickFlow. We do have a free product that that shows you if you're losing traffic on your content. And then I have a ad agency called Single Grain based in downtown LA. And what else? So I have a podcast I do with Neil called Marketing School, and I have another podcast called Leveling Up that I do by myself. So that's the high level.
That's the high level. A bunch of other things other than that, but yeah. So tell people a little bit about the Marketing School, how you guys kind of came together on this particular podcast and this content, and then we'll dive into some of the questions.
Sure, Neil, you want to tell your version of the story?
Yeah.
Sure. So Eric was doing the Leveling Up podcast for years, and he was getting traction. And Eric, was telling me podcasting is amazing. And he was just like, dude, you should do a podcast. He was telling me like I should look into it. And then eventually I came to Eric and I'm like, hey, Eric, we should do a podcast. And we decided to call it Marketing School. I believe Eric came up with the name. Good job, Eric, on the name.
That was both of us, actually. Because first you wanted to call it B School, and then I was like, how about Marketing School? So it was a 50-50.
Yeah, and B School was taken, right? By
Marie Forleo.
Yeah.
And then Marketing School was the name. Eric came over to Vegas when I was living there at the time and recorded a handful of episodes in the heat because we had to turn off the AC because the AC was making too much noise. Funny enough, we're using the exact mic that you have on your desk. I believe that's a Yeti.
Yeah.
So we're using that. Eventually, we ended up upgrading thanks to we have an amazing guy who helps us out with all our podcast stuff. His name's Noah. He's part of Eric's team. And we've just been cranking out episodes. We kept them really short because Eric and I want to take a different approach. We're just like, where do we see the gap in podcasting? We're just like, everyone's giving information, but everyone has really long episodes. How do we just help out people in 5 to 10 minutes a day so people can digest it while they're either running, working out, driving to work, or they're on a lunch break, like something that's just quick and actionable. And Eric and I have just been producing it ever since, and it works out really well. Not only because Eric and I know marketing and we've just been doing it for a long time, but we both constantly are always learning. And then we jive really well on the podcast just because we've been friends for so long. So the dynamic works out quite well.
No, that's good. That's good. I love the format. Super short and quick, bite size, and it's not too overwhelming. And like you said, it's just on the go. And you guys are consistent. So how long have you guys been doing this and how often do you guys record?
We've been doing it for, I think I was just looking at the other day, it's been 3 years, 7 months. We record probably at least twice a month, and we generally do it every 2 weeks or so. Like after this, we're going straight into recording. We're going to crank out like 10 to 15 episodes or so, and then we just keep doing that. It doesn't matter if Neil or I or myself, we're traveling. It doesn't matter how sick we are. We're going to make sure we do it. It doesn't matter if Neil's baby's crying in the background, we do it.
Yeah, nothing stops the show. That's good. That's good. Okay, cool. Well, everybody go check out marketingschool.io. You can catch Neil and Eric there, and just kind of portals out to all of their different content there as well. So let's jump into the questions, guys, because I know we've only got about 30 minutes or so here. So we've got a question from Uzair Karwala, who's LinkedIn Live right now. He's jumping right into it, guys. So what are your top tips for video SEO, and does building backlinks to your YouTube video page count and get high rankings in Google?
Sure. Do you want me to start first?
Yep, go for it.
Typically go for it, Eric.
Cool. So, I mean, TubeBuddy is obviously a solution that we use a ton. Noah from my team, I mean, we're constantly using it for keyword tagging purposes. But the biggest thing for us is when it comes to, because the question's around YouTube SEO, right? We used to publish videos that were 4 to 5 minutes or so, and then lately we've been extending it out to 8 to 10 minutes. You find the watch time goes higher, and then what happens is you tend to rank better for that. And so we do that instead of all the bite-sized pieces, because even if it's 5 minutes or so, people are generally going to watch maybe, like, I don't know, 2 to 3 minutes if you're lucky. So that's a big piece. I'd say by far the biggest piece is when I started taking over the headlines again. You can see from the Marketing School podcast, what works really well is Neil and I, we both work on the headlines, and we're both in the trenches. We're learning new marketing tactics, but we're also operators too. So I think if you can put all of your effort into one thing, if it was one thing only, you probably want to put most of it into the headline. And obviously you have to have good content, and you want to have a good thumbnail too. But you know, I think about looking at the headline first. That's by far the biggest impact thing that really drives our videos forward.
Got it.
The other thing that we found is, Eric's totally spot on about the length. The other thing that we found is YouTube is big on the first 24 hours. The better somebody does in the first 24 hours, the more likely you are to do well in the long run. So what we do is we push the video really hard in the first 24 hours, email blast, push notifications, promoting on social media, our blogs, etc. for YouTube. And when you do that and you get a ton more views, you'll find that your rankings can really shoot up. It's the opposite of Google SEO. Google SEO traditionally is, 6 months, 1 year, you keep doing better and better over time. YouTube SEO is if you do really well in the first 24 hours and your video is really hooking people in, your view time is there because you have the right length, you'll do well. But if you don't do well in the first 24 hours, it's hard to climb in rankings.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. Like a lot of top YouTubers there, they're really focused. They've got a whole game plan. As soon as they press publish on their videos on YouTube, everything turns on. Like there's a whole machine of promoting that happens right away within that first 24 hours. So that's awesome. So Uzair, hopefully that answers your question. If you have any follow-ups, just drop it in the comments. Okay, we've got a question here from our friend Marissa. So this is about podcasting. So she says that if you could duplicate yourself and have time to create a new podcast about one of your passions, what would that podcast be about?
Sure.
Neil, you want to go? Or Eric, go ahead.
Or Neil can go. So on my end, I think I'm kind of already doing it with the Leveling Up podcast. So that's kind of a cheating answer, because the book that I have coming out it's called Leveling Up, and that's next year, and it's about playing the game of life. But I think if Neil and I were to do another podcast, I think to make it easier on us, we would probably do a similar format to Marketing School, and we'd have other people come on and share their best case studies in 5 minutes or so, and let them do the work while we promote it.
That's right. I was actually going to say something very similar, in which we would have guests on, but we would just try to keep it 5 to 10 minutes because we already have a built-in audience. So then it's just about creating more content, but why not have a guest come and share their information? And Eric and I love that because we love learning. So by having a guest, not only are we getting the traction and the traffic because we're controlling the podcast, but we're learning ourselves every day for 5 to 10 minutes by just hearing the guest out.
No, exactly. I mean, this is what I'm doing now. So I'm just bringing on other people that I just want to talk to and learn from. So yeah, that'd be cool. So hopefully, Marissa, that answers your question there. Basically, you guys are going to recreate what you guys have already built and then just shine light on other people and use that as opportunity to learn. So that's cool. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to rifle through all these questions, everybody. So just keep dropping them in the comments. Okay, we've got a question from Veronica. So Veronica is with a company called Sendable. It's kind of a long thing here. Sorry, Eric, cutting off your face there. But it's basically she's talking about, she's kind of making fun of us that we're here on Valentine's. But her question is actually, yeah, there you go. What advice? Okay, so this really applies to you guys because you guys have agencies. So, Veronica at Sendable works with a lot of agencies. And so her question is, what advice would you guys give for marketing agencies just starting up today and wanting to provide marketing services beyond 2020? Should they go niche or specialize? Should they tailor their services to the business they serve? And how can they compete with all the other brands, agencies, influencers out there to create their audience?
So first off, you guys should check out Eric's. He has actually an agency course that's helped a lot of agencies grow. I talked to a few of them in there, and they've grown quite a bit. But Eric can break down the course, and in general, he can answer the question as well, just because he has more experience teaching agencies than I do.
Yeah. So the course is called Agency Accelerator, and you can actually Google it. So I can just type it into chat right here, Agency Accelerator, and it should be the number 1 or number 2 ranking there, SEO. Okay. So I think when it comes to agencies, it's generally like you're going to be competing with a lot of other people. It's not hard to build an agency from scratch, right? I mean, there's not a lot of startup cost in general. What I would say is think about how Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger look at moats around a business. In general, you need to have something like a couple of examples of moats would be, maybe you have, you have network effects, right? You have intangible assets, there's switching costs, there's cost advantage, that kind of stuff, right? So, you look at it, if you're starting out, I would niche down on what you already understand. So for example, like you can niche down on e-commerce, or you can niche down on maybe working with bloggers only, because then people will respect you more and you can command higher price points because you're focused on that niche, and then you're going to be able to grow better. Because the problem is you can do agency style that is low cost and you can take on every single client. Problem with that is everybody else can do that, right? Unless you're really big and you're well capitalized, that's going to be trouble for you. So in general, you want to niche down first, and niching down could be starting out with 1, and then maybe you can open it up to 3 or 4. But that's going to make your life a lot easier, and it's going to make it a lot more sane for the people that are helping you.
And you'll also find that your lifetime value of your customer goes up as well, because when you specialize in the agency business, what you'll find is, especially when you're starting off, a lot of your customers churn quickly. But as you specialize, you can provide better service due to, you're just doing it for so many people in similar industries or in the same industry that you can fine tune your processes and keep customers for longer, which will make you a lot more money.
Great answer. Great answer. So, I guess just kind of piggyback on that then. So as an agency, obviously when you're starting out, you just want revenue, right? That's kind of the biggest thing. You just want to keep the lights on and grow your business, and have capital to continue running your business, maybe hiring people and things like that. How do you sort of start deciding what services you want to niche on, whether it's like, messenger marketing or, whatever it is? What advice would you give to an agency that's trying to figure out, okay, let's go down this path and leave this money on the table because there's more money on going this way?
Yeah, I think, look, if you try with marketing, you can say, hey, like I want to do SEO. I know paid media. I don't want to do all these different channels. I think you should focus on what you're good at and what you're actually getting, what people are actually demanding in the market. So if you find you're not getting much signal when you're trying to pitch certain services, then, you should throw those away for the time being and focus on what's going to work. Because to your point, Rob, people need to survive first. They need to take care of themselves, Maslow's hierarchy, right? Take care of the food on the table first, take care of your shelter first, and then you can think about adding services as time goes on. The problem in the beginning is you try to be everything to everyone, and then you try to add all these services. So it's like a double whammy. It's like it's incredibly hard to do one already, and you're trying to do all these other services. You're setting yourself up for failure.
It's good. Good answer. Good answer. So yeah, don't spread yourself too thin then. Yeah. Great. So hopefully that answers your question out there. Okay. So let me see here. I'm going to just keep going down. Okay. I'm going to go to LinkedIn because I think we've got some questions here on LinkedIn that we haven't addressed. Oh, and Uzair with the YouTube questions, kind of follow up. He's talking about backlinks. So do you guys focus a lot on backlinks these days? I know that used to be like a thing. It's been a while since I was in the SEO world, but is backlinks still something that you guys are concerned about, that you guys are thinking about as far as rankings?
So the way I look at backlinks is still a huge factor. I would say more than backlinks is branding. So Google knows that if a lot of people Google for CNN or Nike or Forbes or whatever it may be, they're probably reputable sources. And they probably are less likely to produce fake news and scammy stuff. So people with brands tend to do better. Outside of branding, I would say backlinks, from what I've seen, is a number 2 thing. It is huge. It is hard to get backlinks. You can either manually go out there, do a ton of outreach, which is a pain, or you can just build like free tools and give them away. I've generated a lot of backlinks by creating, Uber Suggest and releasing a crazy generous free plan, literally over 10,000 backlinks. And if you can't code, you can use sites like codecanyon.net. Find tools in almost every niche, spend $5 to $20 or whatever the amount is. It's really cheap like that. And then just release your tool on your site, and over time you'll build up links.
There you go. So Zaire, hopefully that answers your question. Again, if you still have a follow-up to that, let us know. And I'm going to jump into the next question here. So the next question here, I'm going to rephrase, I'm kind of paraphrase it, but if you were just starting out with your content and you're trying to figure out your traditional business and you're trying to get online and you're trying to find your audience online, and let's say you had $1,000 to spend to find your audience, how would you guys spend that $1,000?
I don't know if I would spend $1,000 if I had to. Generally in the beginning, I'm assuming money is very tight. There's just a lot of free options to go study where my target audience is hanging out, right? And I think if I had to spend the money, I'd probably think about, hey, well, where's my audience hanging out? Are they on Facebook? Very likely they could be on Facebook. Facebook's generally easier for targeting in the early days. I think coming back to YouTube, the only time I'd start using YouTube ads is when I actually have a offer that's scaling. So maybe YouTube ads is out of the equation. I would take a look at, forums out there too, right? Reddit's a good place to look always. There's also a lot of different competitive analysis tools you can use too. I would use maybe even the free version of Similar Web to look for similar websites, and they always give you like a top 50 or top 100. You can look at Alexa as well. They have certain categories in there. There's just a lot of different free tools that are out there that don't require you to do a lot of research. If you want to find the top YouTube channels, I don't know if TubeBuddy has something, but I know Social Blade is out there as well. So I think I'd probably be cheap. I'm a cheap Asian guy, so I'd keep the 1,000 first. I don't know about you, Neil.
So if I had to spend $1,000, I would save most of it. I'd probably spend a little bit of money on getting a domain name and basic stuff like that. But the biggest thing is when you're starting off and you're trying to do a lot with $1,000, it's put in your time and wait till you find your passion and get some traction with whatever it may be. Create the content, educate, go live, push, start monetizing. When you start making some money and you're getting a little bit of traction, then whatever's working, spend $1,000 on that or the remaining amount. Think of marketing like spaghetti. Throw it against the wall, you see what sticks, and then you go from there. So it's it's the same concept. But you don't always know what's going to work. Even if it works for your competition, may not work for you, but you got to test.
I like it. There you go. So hopefully that answers your question there. We've got a couple of questions here from Twitter. So first one, it's kind of from another angle here. Are vlogs the way to go these days on YouTube?
No.
How do you guys feel about vlogs?
No, I think
starting out with a vlog.
I think no, because the reason why the vlogs work for Casey Neistat or these other people is because they have an audience already. So when you publish something, it's going to work. The problem is in the very beginning, nobody knows who you are, and you start talking about your life. Maybe you're jumping out of the shower, and then like I don't know if you're dancing and stuff. Like that's not going to work because people don't know who you are. And the name of the game is you have to help others get what they want first, and then you get whatever you want, right? So you have to add value first, and before you start doing the dancing, or like maybe you're eating spaghetti or eating ramen in front of the video. Generally, that's not going to work well unless you're like. Here's the other thing. I think if there's a caveat to this. I would say 98% of us or so are not going to be super entertaining or have really good camera skills or be really good dancers, right? If you happen to be in that 2% where you are really entertaining and you're really funny, by all means, vlog, it's probably really entertaining. But for the vast majority of us, like Neil and I, go with the stuff that educates people.
And on top of that, just doing video, you may get traffic and traction from like YouTube or Facebook, but you're going going to miss traffic from the #1 channel, which is Google. Text-based content always does better on Google than video has. Maybe that'll change in the future, but I've seen no signs of that yet.
Got it. There you go. So that's your thoughts on vlogging. It's great. There's another question here, and I'm gonna kind of, I guess, expand on this question a little bit. But they're wondering, would you guys recommend pulling the audio from a YouTube live stream and publish it as a podcast? I think that's pretty straightforward practice these days. A lot of YouTubers are doing that, or a lot of video creators are doing that. What have you guys done with, as far as like, I guess the term I think that you guys have shared is omnipresent, or like omnipresent marketing, being everywhere. You guys have a team, of course. But what is sort of like, let's just say for somebody that's just on their own, what would you advise them as far as like being everywhere and being omnipresent? Is that something that you think they should do? Should they focus on just one channel and grow that as they start building that channel? Like what's advice for somebody just one-man show, one-person show, creating content, trying to build an audience?
Sure. You want me to take it first, Neil?
Go for it.
Cool. So I think the answer is it depends, and that's it's not the best answer, but here's an example. So if you're creating a podcast, which Neil and I, let's just go with Marketing School as an example. It publishes to Google Play, it publishes to Apple, it publishes to Spotify, it publishes to iHeartRadio. It basically every single day we publish to 7 different channels. Now, here's the kicker here is we're publishing 7 different times, and it's native to each platform, meaning it's the right format right there. It's just the audio file, correct? So we go with the podcast because it's easy for us, and it makes sense to kind of publish omni-channel like that. But if we are, let's say we're doing a video and we try to just a YouTube video, and we just try to publish that to a podcast. Sometimes it's not native because I might be saying, hey, look at my screen over here, and I'm not showing that, right? So you got to think about creating the right experience for the user before you say, hey, I'm just gonna randomly publish everything. Because when you do stuff like that, for example, in the past, we do a YouTube video and we convert it to an Instagram TV, but it wouldn't be formatted correctly. It wouldn't get the right amount of engagement. In fact, it'd make us look bad as a brand, right? So I would say in the very beginning, if you're limited on resources, focus on what you're good at. If you're good at blogging, focus on that first, and then you can start focusing on, hey, maybe a blog can go into micro social pieces of content. You can make it into a video, right? If you're good at video, start with the video. Video easily becomes audio as well, and then draw out the relevant pieces. Then you can expand there. But start small first. Focus on what you're good at before you think about expanding, because otherwise, it starts to get too complex too quickly. And I think a lot of us in the very beginning, we look at what everyone else is doing. We compare our chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 25, and it becomes so overwhelming that you're just going to end up quitting really quickly.
The easiest way to think about it is if you have audio, it's easier to put your audio in many different places and go omni-channel. If you have video, upload it natively to upload that direct file to YouTube, then to Facebook, then to LinkedIn, then to Twitter, then to Instagram, etc. And if you're lucky enough where the video also turns into audio, you can do that as well. But typically the easiest route to first do is whatever content you're creating, like let's say it's an image, whatever social platforms and websites accept the images, upload it there. If you have videos, do the same thing. If you have audio, push out your audio everywhere and don't just push it out on one channel.
Got it. There you go. So hopefully that answers your question there. Next question is, if you guys were, again, this is one of those questions that people love to ask, is that if you guys were starting out and you're talking to Neil and Eric way back when, before it all became what it is today, what business advice would you guys give yourselves years ago when you guys were just starting out with your agencies and this whole journey with entrepreneurship?
I have to be focused. I've got too many businesses. I should have just focused on one and just try to make it as big as possible. That was my big mistake.
Yeah,
I'll you, Eric?
I thought Neil was going to talk about instead of building a brand, going with the free tool instead. He still probably thinks that as well, but I think it's very easy. Again, kind of what I was alluding to with my last answer. It's too easy to get distracted with shiny object syndrome, especially with marketing, because with Marketing School, we're sharing new tactics all the time, and there's new stuff going on. So it's like you constantly want to try the new thing, and same thing with business too. You want to constantly try the new thing. But when you think about the example that Neil and I share on the Marketing School podcast, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett when they were asked what's the most important thing to business success, when they both flipped over a piece of paper, it said focus. So I think, yeah, if you can do that, easier said than done in early days. You're probably going to have to take a few lickings before you actually learn how that actually feels. But I think that's the key word.
I love that. I love that. I think that's a big problem that we all have. I mean, there's so much information coming through our phones and scrolling through, and there's so many shiny objects, and it's really hard to focus. So how have you guys focused? Because you guys seem like you guys are doing all the right things and making all the right moves. So at this point, of course, I'm sure there's so many opportunities coming your way. There's people hitting you guys up for different things. How do you guys just say no to the things that you should say no to and stay focused?
So what I do is there's a few things. So one, you go after a big enough TAM, right? Total addressable market. If the market you're not going after is big enough, then it doesn't matter how much you focus on it. You're just not going to create a big enough business. It's easier to go, get 1% of a multi-billion-dollar market than it is to get 100% of a $20 million market. So go after a really big market because it's easier to penetrate and make something. And then just keep focusing on it. And what you want to do is ignore everything as long as you're growing. If you can't figure out how to grow, then either work with someone, hire someone, reevaluate your strategy. But if you feel your business is big enough and you're tapped out, then at that point, and if you plateaued, then consider expanding into other congruent, similar fields, so that way you can keep growing again. But the moment you're still growing and growing, there's no point in adjusting your focus.
Got it. Yep. How
Yep.
about you, Eric? What helps you focus?
So on my end, and I think Neil will agree with this too, instead of trying to do everything on our own, we've kind of learned to hire great people and get out of their way at different levels. I think in the past, we've always wanted to be the practitioner that's in the weeds and micromanaging everything. I think you just hire people ultimately that it's easier said than done. You hire people that are smarter than you. You get out of their way and you help enable whatever they need, and then you constantly look for other opportunities and put people in a position to win. I think back in the day, it used to be all about the new marketing hacks, and now, at least for me, the way I look at it is what are all the recruiting, what can I do from a recruiting standpoint, what can I do from a culture standpoint, because those are kind of the new marketing hacks for me, and I get a lot of excitement from doing that kind of stuff, in addition to, of course, learning the marketing stuff. I think for me personally, when I think about like a Friday like today, I spend most of my time creating content or on strategy. So a lot of my time is spent on thinking or recruiting or spending time on the vision now. I don't know about you, Neil. You're muted.
You lost your audio. You're muted.
For me, I spend almost all my time doing one thing, which is, I have quite a few businesses, but I focus on just one thing. And that's driving leads for all my businesses because they're on all the same vertical. And then I put a CEO in place to run each and every single business, but I only focus on one thing. Each day, I spend my time trying to figure out how to drive more leads, and that's it.
That's great. That's actually a really good segue, because I was going to ask you guys what it is that you guys do. Like, what is your? I'm sure all your days are all different, but when you're just heads down, what do you guys do? Like, what part of your business do you guys handle? Because you guys have teams and everything happening now. So what do you guys focus on that?
I think you also have to look at it. I think for people that are listening right now, we have to look at it as Neil is in a different chapter in his business career versus myself, or versus also those of you that are watching. So I think everything's all relative, right? I think for me, the way I focus at this stage is I block out my time, right? And same thing for Neil too. Time's our most important asset. I think it's not renewable. So on Mondays, to help me focus, it's all time blocked for meetings. Mondays, it's my one-on-one meetings. It's my it's the long, we use this process called traction, and those are 90-minute meetings or so, and I do about 3 of them on Monday. And let's say Tuesday, Wednesdays, I focus on ClickFlow, which is the software. Thursdays, I'm producing content. Fridays, I generally block out the whole days, so nobody can book a meeting with me. And then Fridays, I might produce more content with Neil, or I might have, like right after this, we're recording marketing school and I'm going to a lunch meeting, right? So I try to keep it blocked out so I have time to think and then time for serendipity.
Yeah.
And I spend my days just creating content. Some of it I do with Eric, writing blog posts, trying to run conversion tests, and I watch a ton of Netflix. But yeah, no, in general, my days, other than creating content, funny enough, my days filled with mainly just emails over anything else.
It's got it. Cool. That's great. Okay. So Bree Anderson, good friend of mine, says yes. You've got to know when to get out of other people's way. Underdog Painting on YouTube says, "Hey guys, hope everything's going well. I'm actually on a date night with my wife. It's Valentine's Day. So yes, good for you. That's a good excuse." Okay, I've got a question for you guys. I believe it's from LinkedIn, but when you guys first started, what was your first hire? What was that first person you hired? What did you kind of get off your plate first, in the early days?
So
yeah, go ahead, Neil.
Neil, go ahead.
So with me, I don't know exactly my first hire. I've been an entrepreneur for 18 years now.
Right.
So usually the way I look at first hires is what is taking the most of your time that's producing the lowest ROI, and hire that person, because it's going to be different for every person. Nowadays, my first hire is always who's going to be the CEO and going to run the company. And sadly, I just say deal with it. And I just focus on what I'm good at, and that's it. Because I'm weak at things like management. I'm weak at things like building a culture. I'm really only decent at one thing, which is driving traffic and leads. So that's all I focus on.
That's good. How about you, Eric?
Yeah, I think to Neil's point, one thing that you can do that if those of you that are numbers focused is every quarter you're looking at cutting 15% of the things that you aren't good at or aren't giving you energy. So, if you can find someone that can do something at 70 or 80% of your level, then you're doing a good job, because you're gaining leverage from hiring, right? It's the biggest leverage thing you can do. I think, in the early days, let's say I was starting an agency, it would be, for people to actually do the work, and I can continue to focus on selling. That's one simple answer. Now, the other thing is, I think it was Michael Hyatt that said this, but ideally your executive assistant is one of your first hires, because they're going to take a lot off in terms of scheduling, in terms of maybe, other things that you need to have done, right? It's more of like an operations person that can handle a lot of different things. And as you get bigger, I recommend reading the book Rocket Fuel, because then you'll learn the concept of having a visionary versus an integrator. Because most of us that are in here, 80% of us are visionaries. We're going to have all the ideas, but who's actually going to do all the ideas? You're going to need that 20%er that can do that. But easy answer first is have someone that can actually do the work, so you can focus more on business development, and you can start to gain more leverage, scale, and then hire more people. That's going to help you grow.
Love it. Sounds good. Awesome. Next question here is content. So this is your guys' world. How do you guys come up with the content that you create at this stage? Do you do a lot of research, or do you, look at comments? Like, what is it that,
For me, I look at things like what's all the other bloggers, what are they writing on? I used to use tools like the BuzzSumos of the world. But nowadays, it's more so reading and researching on what's hot. The other thing I look at is where's the market going that no one's talking about. And then the third thing I do is I try to ask for ideas. So I'll ask people for ideas, like on what they're struggling the most with, as well as my team members. And that helps me come up with a lot of ideas as well.
Got it. How about you, Eric?
Yeah, so this
one up with content.
For content ideas, I asked my team in Slack, hey, what are your ideas? I spent a lot of time reading my Feedly account. So Feedly, I'll follow like the Ad Ages of the world. I read a lot of Wall Street Journal. There's a lot of just news I follow, and I save it to my Pocket, which is my Read It Later app. And from there, we come up with ideas. And then generally what will happen is right after this, when we go record, I'll dump a bunch of these ideas into our podcast ideas sheet in Google. And then Neil and I will just go and just kind of edit a couple of them, and then we'll be off to the races. So it's just generally staying aware of what's going on with the news. And then also I follow a lot of entrepreneurs and marketers on Twitter, so I can see what's going on there. And then, it's hard for there not to be new stuff to talk about. People are always like, oh, you're like approaching 1,300 episodes. How are you doing that? It's just there's new stuff all the time, so it makes our job easier.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then do you guys come back to, something that you've spoken about, say, a year ago or 2 years ago, and kind of give an update on that content? Is that something that you guys ever do?
Very common.
Very common. Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Okay.
Hot, right? If it was hot like a year or two ago, and you already know that it's still relevant today, why not bring the old stuff back to life? What's old is new again. There's nothing wrong with regurgitating, repurposing, re-updating. That works extremely well. And the same thing, if you've been doing something for a while, you'll have analytics so you can see what's worked and what hasn't. So anything that's new, that's similar to the stuff that didn't work in the past, don't do it. The stuff that's similar to the stuff that did work, do more of that.
Like it. I love it. Okay, let's talk YouTube. I'd hate not to pick your guys' brain on YouTube because we are here with TubeBuddy Live. So there's a lot of people here that are concerned about YouTube, looking to grow their YouTube channel. So, let's start with Eric. Eric, what is, with your experience with YouTube, with your channel, what is one or two pieces of advice that you guys can give to the YouTubers out there looking to grow their channel for business purposes, not for vlogging or, but for business purposes?
Yeah, I would say for me, I think I read this book before where I took it a little too literally. The book is literally called Let My People Go Sailing. And that's the art of kind of just delegating, right? And letting people do things. I think I delegated I was a little too loose on the titles for the past 2 years. And so I started picking it up recently. And then we've been hitting kind of record numbers relative to our channel, right? But if I did that 2 years earlier, we'd probably be right now. It's an okay size. We're 32,000 subscribers or so, but I'd probably be over 100, maybe even 200,000 subscribers if I had full control, creative control over the topics, and I didn't hand that off, and I just didn't take that book literally. So that's one thing. Honestly, that's probably the biggest thing. I think second thing is obviously consistency too. We post 2 to 3 videos a week, and just constantly iterating there, and just getting better. Like the thumbnails improved over time. Learning that
thumbnails are killer, man.
Over time. Yeah. So it's taken time, but biggest thing, if I come back to it, is probably having control over the topics that I understand, and not putting the onus on Noah, the videographer, to figure out the titles, because he's not a marketer.
Right. That's really, that's good insight. So with your channel, what do you handle at this point? Do you, because Noah's involved, you've got a videographer, you've got a designer for thumbnails and stuff like that, I'm assuming. So you just jump in and you just drop the content. Yeah.
Yeah, so literally, Noah was here. This is my apartment, but he came over, and then we cranked out a bunch of videos. But he will give a shot list, and then I'll edit the topics to my liking, and then we'll record for about 2 hours or so, and then that will give us enough content for usually a month.
Got it. Awesome. Well, fantastic job. The branding is awesome. It definitely pops. So we got Dan Courier, Creator Fundamentals. He's got an amazing channel as well on LinkedIn Live. He says he needs to hand more off. I think this is something that a lot of creators have a problem with, is that you just want to control, the creative aspect of all the things, that you're putting out there. So
yeah, be lazy. Neil and I are kind of lazy. So
yeah, be lazy. There you go. So next course. Okay, Neil, what's your thoughts with YouTube? Somebody out there just comes up to you and say, hey, I love your YouTube channel. You've got over 500,000 subscribers. What's your tip for me? I'm just starting out.
The big thing is, so there's a few things. Content topics are huge. Eric mentioned that. So make sure you're picking stuff that's trendy. You can look at other people's channels and see what hit and what hasn't hit in the past. That will help you out with the content ideas. My team will give me a lot of content ideas. I then go and pick the ones I want. I then go and modify the ones I don't like or delete them. Then they'll outline them. I'll then go and adjust the outlines, and then I just go and record. Keeping the video length around 10 minutes helps a lot. Promoting in the first 24 hours is the biggest thing that most people don't do. And I always tell them, if you do that, you'll notice a huge increase. If you have big lists, be careful if you promote too hard in the first hour of a video going live. So if I do a blast to my email list, it's too many views. A lot of times YouTube will think that they're fake. So we stagger the deliverability, if that makes sense. So that way it goes out over time. So that way they know it's real, versus you're sending them 20,000 people literally in 5 minutes. I'm assuming most people won't have that problem, but that is important if you do have a big list.
That's important. Yeah.
And the other thing that I would do is, you guys already know, do your keyword research, have the right keywords in there, put them in the titles, and make sure whatever you're doing, whether it's with your titles or whether it's with your thumbnails, evoke curiosity. The more curiosity you evoke, the higher chance you're going to get people clicking and watching through. Others say hey, have them subscribe and make sure they click the alarm bell and all that stuff. You can do that. We haven't seen huge upticks in views when you try to get people to do all that stuff versus just having good quality content and following the fundamentals.
I love that, man. That's good. That's really good advice. Everybody does focus on like, what's the call to action, all that stuff. Just drop good advice and that will grow your subscriber rate. That's awesome. Okay, guys. Well, you know what? We're up to about 40 minutes. So I'm going to wrap this up. So I want to say thank you to you both. You guys are fantastic. I know you guys are two busy men here and hopping on with us on Valentine's Day, hanging out, just answering questions. So before we go, again, where can people connect with you? You know, they just turn on the computer. I'm sure they'll find you guys, but where can people connect with you both online?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. It's Eric O. Su. And then obviously you can listen to the Marketing School podcast.
Same, my Instagram is Neil Patel, and check out the Marketing School podcast.
Awesome, guys. Sounds good. So I'll drop all the links to the Marketing School podcast and all the websites and everything for these two gentlemen. And guys, thank you so much again. And everybody on the live, thank you for hanging out. We'll make sure to go into the comments and answer any questions. And if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to drop your questions as well. We'll get it over to these guys. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Take care.
Bye.